everyone, Katarina here. Thank you for joining me today. I have for you a Christmas card number 9 with an awesome background I found on YouTube. It was on the W+9 channel and they were creating a background with the Bokeh Effect or whatever the pronunciation is. I will pop the word on the screen so you know what I mean. I think this is an awesome technique. I did also look up other videos where they were creating a card with this effect, but the one on the W+9 channel was the best in my opinion and super simple. I will leave a link to that video in the description below so you can check it out. So let's get started. These are almost all the supplies I will be using. First I started with watercoloring the background. I used a hot press watercolor cardstock from Dollar and Rowney. I cut 2 panels and taped them to a cork board with a washi tape. The watercolors I used are the Gansai Tambi watercolors, but you can use whatever colors you have in your stash. First I started with the colors mint and purple. I wet the panel with a clean water using a flat brush and then I applied the watercolors using a round brush. This one I think is in size 10 and it's from Dollar and Rowney. I applied the mint color through the whole panel and then applied the purple. Since the purple is dark and the mint is light, I thought it will not be a problem. But for a second I was a little bit worried that I will get muddy colors, but it turned out okay. I really didn't have a concept here applying the colors, I just applied the colors quickly and randomly. For the next panel I used 3 shades of green. This is actually why I used my Gansai Tambi watercolors, as they contain multiple shades of colors. The other watercolor set I have is from Winsor & Newton and this one has only 12 colors and I would need to mix the colors to get the shades I wanted and I was just too lazy. Again, I applied the colors randomly and when the water was pooling on the sides, I used a kitchen towel to absorb the excess water. I let it air dry. You can also use a heat gun if you are short on time, but I'm never good at getting the watercolors to dry using a heat gun, so I just let it dry by itself and do something else in the meantime. Here are the panels after they dried. I think they look very nice. Next, it was the time for the bokeh effect. Just like in the W+9 video, I created my own stencil. I used a piece of acetate and used 3 sizes of circle dies to die cut them. For the ink, I used the Unicorn White Pigment ink from Hero Arts and a sponge dabber. Be aware that the color from the card will actually transfer to the ink pad. The ink was white when applying it to the watercolor panel, but the ink pad was looking dirty. So I just placed the stencil on top of the panel and applied the ink. My plan was to put 3 of each circles, some of them were overlapping. If there was still space, I applied another 3 circles before I moved to the smaller circle. Also, not on all circles, but on many, I got this ink buildup around the edges. To smooth them out, I removed the stencil and used my sponge dabber and slowly blended the ink. I will show it to you in better detail on the next panel. Sometimes the stencil was moving, you can use a tape to secure it, but I just was too lazy. And I didn't mess it up, so it didn't matter. Also, I cleaned the stencil with a baby wipe, usually before moving to the different size of the circle, so the ink doesn't transfer. Here is the finished green panel. For the purple panel, I will show you the full process and play a little bit of music and see you once I'm done. And here are the finished panels. Next I was going to die cut them using a rectangular stitch die for A6 cards from Create a Smile. I placed the die on top of the panel, and so it doesn't move, I secured it with a low tack tape, and then I run it through my die cutting machine that I have on the floor. I also placed a piece of scrap paper on top of the panel before I run it through my die cutting machine, just in case the ink wasn't dry so it doesn't transfer. So I bought this Christmas tree die back in October, and I hoped it was bigger. There was no information on the website, so I sort of was buying blind, although I kind of thought it will be small as it cost around €2. I didn't want to give up on the die and I wanted to use it, and this card was perfect for it. I was going to die cut the tree 3 times next to each other. And also, while I was die cutting, I used a word die from Neat and Tangled that says Winter, and I cut it from silver glittery cardstock. I kind of also changed my mind. I used the silver glittery cardstock only for the purple mint panel, and for the green panel I thought the gold glitter cardstock will fit better. I also die cut the winter word 2 additional times for each panel from a plain white cardstock, so the word is slightly raised. What I find weird about this die is that it cuts the word in half. I think it could easily be one word, but who knows, maybe there is a reason why it is split in 2 parts. To glue all the pieces together, I used the Mono Multi-Liquid Glue from Tombow. I stuck all the die cut pieces of the word winter together. You can actually use any glue you have. I first tried the multi-medium matte adhesive from Ranger, but for some reason I had troubles getting it out from the bottle. Maybe I just need to buy a new one. Once I had all the pieces glued together, I put it under an acrylic block so they dry properly. Then I also adhered the glitter cardstock from behind of the watercolor panel. I just wanted to add a little bit more sparkle to the card. Could actually leave it as it is. I think it looks very pretty. Or just die cut the tree and adhere the glitter cardstock on top of the card base and adhere the panel on top of it using a foam tape so it's a little bit raised. But I wanted the die cut trees to be on the card. Originally I thought I will be able to use a foam tape to have it a little bit raised, but the die also cuts little circles and it would be too fiddly to use a foam tape, so I just decided not to do that. I first curled up the trees to bring a little bit of dimension to the card. I used a brush which helped me to put the tree into a shape I wanted. And then I added a liquid glue from behind of the tree, just in the middle. I also tried to put a glue dot behind the tree so it keeps the size up, but it didn't work. I adhered the trees same way on both panels, and then I adhered the die cut word winter. Again using the same glue from Tombow. I put the winter word below the trees. I wanted the sentiment to say winter wishes, and I didn't have a long-standing stamp that would say wishes. So I searched my stamps and I found this stamp set saying birthday wishes. This is an older stamp set I have and I used that. I wanted to heat emboss it using a white embossing powder on a black cardstock. And because I didn't want to cut the stamp apart, I would not mind in this case as the stamp is quite old, but the words are too close together and it would just be a little bit difficult to cut them apart. So I took my washi tape and covered the birthday part. I inked it up using the Versamark ink, removed the washi tape and stamped the sentiment. Then I applied the embossing powder and repeated the process since I was making 2 cards, and then I heat embossed it using my heat gun. Then I cut the cardstock into a thin strip using my paper trimmer. I also used my scissors to trim the sides and also cut it in an angle on one side. But before I adhered it to the panel, I first adhered the watercolor panels on top of a white card base. I used a fan foam so it's a little bit raised. I adhered it using double-sided adhesive that I applied on both of the sides of the fan foam. You can also use a foam adhesive if you don't have a fan foam. And lastly, I adhered the black strip with the word wishes and adhered it below the die cut word winter. I used a small foam square adhesive to attach it to the panel. And here are the finished cards. I think they look very nice. I really love the bokeh effect. I also made one extra card with blue watercolors, and as usual, not sure which I like the most. I definitely would encourage you to try this technique as well, as it's lots of fun and the results are fantastic. If you like this card, I would appreciate if you gave this video a thumbs up, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to this channel. The list of supplies I will have in the description below this video, as well as on my blog, where I will include links for most of the products. Thank you all so much for watching. Happy holidays, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!